The massive screens in Times Square flickered with excitement as humanity watched the Galactic Council's ships descend through Earth's atmosphere. Golden vessels that looked like falling stars painted the sky, their hulls gleaming in the summer sun. People held their breath, phones raised high to capture humanity's first official contact with the galactic community. Among the crowd stood Captain James Miller, his military uniform crisp despite the humid New York air. His eyes narrowed as he studied the approaching ships. 20 years in the Space Force had taught him to look past the shine and search for substance. These aliens were putting on quite a show, but something felt off about the whole thing. The lead ship landed in the specially prepared area of Central Park, its golden surface dimming to a subtle glow. The crowd's cheers echoed across Manhattan as tall, elegant figures emerged from the vessel. The alien diplomats walked with perfect posture, their long robes flowing despite the lack of wind. "Quite the entrance," muttered Susan Thompson, who stood next to Miller. As Earth's leading spacecraft engineer, she had been chosen to evaluate whatever technology the Council might share with humanity. Her dark eyes sparkled with curiosity, but her mouth was set in a suspicious line. The alien delegation approached the waiting human leaders. Their spokesperson, a tall figure with silvery skin, spread 4 arms in what appeared to be a greeting gesture. "People of Earth," the alien's voice carried clearly through their translation device, "we welcome you to the galactic community." The ceremony proceeded exactly as planned. Speeches were made, promises of cooperation and friendship were exchanged, and then came the moment everyone had been waiting for, the presentation of Earth's acceptance gift. As is tradition, the alien spokesperson announced, "We present you with a vessel of our making to help humanity take its first steps among the stars." The air shimmered, and suddenly it appeared, floating above Central Park like a ghost ship from an old tale. But as the shimmer faded, confused murmurs spread through the crowd. The ship looked old. Its hull was a patchwork of dull metal plates, some showing clear signs of wear. It was massive, yes, but it had none of the elegance of the Council's golden vessels. Miller watched as Thompson's fingers flew across her tablet, her frown deepening with each reading. "Captain," she whispered, "these energy readings are barely above minimum spaceflight requirements. This thing is running on technology that's, well, by their standards, it must be ancient." The alien spokesperson continued, their tone carrying what sounded suspiciously like amusement. "This Horizon-class exploration vessel has served many species well. We're sure humans will find it adequate for their current level of development." Miller caught the slight twitch at the corner of the spokesperson's mouth, a gesture that seemed universal among species, badly hidden contempt. He glanced at Thompson, who gave him a slight nod. She had caught it too. The ceremony concluded quickly after that. As the alien ships departed, their golden hulls once again turning into stars, humanity was left with their gift, now dubbed the SCI-FI by the media. It hung in low Earth orbit like a sad reminder of humanity's place in the galactic hierarchy. 3 days later, Miller found himself floating through the vessel's main corridor with Thompson. The ship's artificial gravity was working, but only at 60% capacity. Their footsteps echoed in the empty halls, the sound bouncing off walls that had clearly seen better days. "They really went all out to insult us, didn't they?" Miller said, running his hand along a wall panel that looked like it might fall off at any moment. "This ship is barely holding together." Thompson didn't respond immediately. She was focused on a section of exposed circuitry, her tablet displaying readings that meant nothing to Miller, but he knew that look in her eyes. The same look she got when faced with a particularly interesting puzzle. "Maybe," she finally said, "but they made a mistake. A big one." She turned to Miller, her face lit with excitement. "They assumed we'd see this ship the same way they do, as outdated, useless technology, but they don't understand how humans think." She pulled up a holographic display of the ship's power core. "Look at this. The core design, it's not specialized like modern alien ships. It's basic, adaptable. They'd probably see that as a weakness, but for us, she grinned, it's an opportunity. This ship is like a blank canvas, Captain, and humans have always been good at turning trash into treasure. Miller studied the display, beginning to understand her excitement. How long would it take to get it fully operational? Operational. Thompson laughed. Captain, I don't want to make it operational. I want to make it extraordinary. Give me 6 months, and Earth's best engineers. We'll show the Council exactly what humans can do with their adequate gift. As they continued their inspection, Miller noticed more and more signs that Thompson was right. The ship's flaws were actually opportunities in disguise. Its simple systems could be modified, improved, rebuilt. What looked like decorative patterns on the hull could house additional systems. The outdated power core could be adapted to human technology. They found the bridge last, a spacious room with views of Earth through massive windows. Most of the consoles were dark, their systems running on minimum power. But even here, Miller could see the potential. With human innovation, this room could become something the Council never imagined. You know what they're trying to do, right? Miller said, settling into the captain's chair. It creaked ominously under his weight. They're trying to keep us contained. Give us something that looks impressive, but will hold us back technologically. Thompson nodded, already making notes on her tablet. They think they've given us a ship that will take generations to improve upon. They want us dependent on their technology, their approval. She looked up, her eyes gleaming with determination. They have no idea what they've actually given us. Miller smiled, looking out at the Earth below. The aliens had made a crucial mistake. They had given humans exactly what humans do best with: a challenge, an opportunity, and something to prove wrong. Get your team together, he said. I want detailed assessments of every system, every circuit, every bolt. If there's potential for improvement, I want to know about it. He stood up, his mind already racing with possibilities. They handed us what they thought was a useless vessel. Let's show them what humanity can really do. As they left the bridge, Thompson paused at a half-functioning console. With a few quick taps, she brought up the ship's original specifications. You know what the funny thing is, Captain? This ship's base design, it's actually brilliant. Simple, yes, but brilliant. It's almost as if. As if what? As if whoever designed it originally built it to be modified. Like they were waiting for someone to come along who would see it differently. She shook her head. Or maybe I'm just seeing what I want to see. Miller looked back at the bridge, at all its dormant potential. Either way, I think we're about to make some waves in the galactic community. The Council wants to see what humans can do with their gift. He smiled. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. The makeshift command center buzzed with activity as engineers from every corner of Earth gathered to examine the alien vessel. Screens displayed technical readouts, while 3D holograms of ship systems floated in the air. Susan Thompson stood at the center of it all, directing the organized chaos like a conductor leading an orchestra. The power core is our priority, she announced, pointing to a holographic display of the ship's heart. It's running at 15% capacity, but that's not because it's broken. It's because we haven't figured out how to wake it up properly. Robert Wilson, a former military engineer with decades of experience in weapons systems, stepped forward. His weathered face creased in thought as he studied the core's design. Look at these connection points, he said, tracing lines in the air. They're universal adapters. This thing wasn't built to use just one type of power source. It was built to use anything. Thompson's eyes lit up. She quickly pulled up the ship's original specifications. You're right. The aliens probably saw this as primitive, but it's brilliant. We can hook up our fusion reactors, solar arrays, even the experimental quantum power cells. This ship could run on multiple power sources simultaneously. The team worked through the night, fueled by coffee and excitement. They discovered that almost every system on the ship followed the same principle. Simple, basic designs that could be modified and improved. It wasn't a limitation. It was an opportunity. A week later, Miller visited the ship to check on their progress. The corridors that had once echoed with emptiness now hummed with life. Engineers crawled through access panels, replaced old systems, and installed new ones. The air crackled with possibility. "Captain," Thompson called out, emerging from a tangle of wires. Her face was smudged with grease, but her smile was bright. "You need to see this." She led him to what had once been a bare section of hull. Now it bristled with new sensors and equipment. "Remember those decorative patterns on the outer hull? They're not decorative at all. They're prefabricated mounting points. The aliens probably forgot their original purpose, but we figured it out. We can attach almost anything to them." Wilson joined them, carrying what looked like a modified weapon system. "And that's not all," he added. "These mounting points form a grid across the entire ship. If we do this right, we could create the most advanced shield system humanity has ever designed." Miller watched as they demonstrated their discoveries. Every flaw in the ship's design had become an advantage. The outdated computer systems were being replaced with Earth's latest quantum computers. The weak engines were being modified to accept multiple types of propulsion. Even the life support systems were being upgraded to exceed anything currently in use. "How long until we can test it?" Miller asked, trying to hide his excitement. Thompson checked her tablet. 2 more weeks for the basic systems. But here's the interesting part. We're building everything to be modular. If something breaks or we develop better technology, we can swap it out in hours instead of months. This ship will never be outdated because it can always be upgraded. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. The ship's transformation was remarkable. Its hull, once dull and patched, now gleamed with purpose. New systems peeked through the surface like jewels, each serving a vital function. The bridge, once dark and lifeless, now pulsed with energy. On the day of the first test flight, Miller stood on the bridge with Thompson and Wilson. The ship hummed around them, its new power core running at full capacity. Multiple energy sources worked in perfect harmony, providing more power than the original designers had ever imagined possible. "All systems are ready," Thompson reported, her fingers dancing across the new control panels. "Power output is stable at 300% of original specifications. Shield grid is online. Weapons systems are, well, let's just say we've got some surprises if we need them." Miller settled into the captain's chair, now properly reinforced and equipped with its own command interfaces. "Take us out, nice and easy. Let's see what she can do." The ship lifted smoothly from its dock, its new engines purring like a well-tuned machine. As they cleared Earth's atmosphere, Thompson began running through their test protocols. Each new system performed perfectly, exceeding even their optimistic expectations. Preparing for full power test, Thompson announced, "All departments report ready." Miller nodded. "Do it." The ship surged forward, its hybrid power systems working together in ways the Galactic Council had never imagined. On the screens, test data scrolled past at incredible speeds. Every system was performing at levels that would have seemed impossible just weeks ago. "Look at these readings," Wilson said, grinning. "The shield grid isn't just defensive. It's actually improving our engine efficiency. The whole ship is working together like a single organism." As they put the ship through its paces, Miller couldn't help but smile. The aliens had given them what they thought was an obsolete vessel, but they had fundamentally misunderstood humanity. Where they saw limitations, humans saw possibilities. Where they saw outdated technology, humans saw a foundation to build upon. "We need a new name," Miller said as they completed their final test run. "We can't keep calling it the SCI-FI anymore." Thompson looked up from her station. "I've been thinking about that. What about Phoenix? In Earth mythology, it's a bird that rises from its own ashes, transformed into something more powerful than before." Wilson nodded approvingly. "Perfect. Because that's exactly what we've done here. We've taken their cast-off gift and turned it into something they never imagined possible." As they began their return flight to Earth, Miller gazed out at the stars. The Galactic Council had tried to contain humanity's growth, to keep them dependent and subordinate. Instead, they had given humans exactly what they needed: a challenge to overcome, a puzzle to solve, and a chance to prove themselves. "You know," Thompson said quietly, "I don't think they'll be smirking the next time they see this ship." Miller smiled. "No, they won't. But that's not why we did this. We did it because this is what humans do. We take what we're given, and we make it better. We adapt, we improve, we overcome." The Phoenix streaked back toward Earth, its systems humming with power and possibility. It was no longer a cast-off gift or an insult to humanity. It was proof of what humans could achieve when given the chance. And this was just the beginning. 6 months passed like a whirlwind of innovation and discovery. The Phoenix had become Earth's greatest technical achievement, though few beyond the project team knew its true capabilities. From space, it still looked like the same old vessel the Galactic Council had given them, but beneath its skin, it was something entirely new. Thompson stood in the ship's new control center, watching as her team installed the final pieces of their most ambitious upgrade yet. The room gleamed with holographic displays and smart surfaces that responded to touch and thought. Gone were the creaking panels and flickering screens. Everything now moved with smooth precision. "Final power core integration is complete," announced one of her engineers. "All 5 power sources are running in perfect sync. We're seeing output levels that are—" He paused, double-checking his readings, 700% above original specifications. Wilson walked in, carrying his latest creation, a handheld device that looked too small to be dangerous. "Wait until you see what this beauty can do," he said, grinning. "Remember those decorative hull patterns we found? Well, I've figured out how to turn them into weapon ports. One button, and this ship can defend itself from any angle." The Phoenix had indeed become something extraordinary. Its hull now contained thousands of micro-launchers, each capable of deploying everything from defensive shields to offensive weapons. The original designers had left the mounting points, but humans had taken the concept far beyond anything they had imagined. Miller entered the control center, looking impressed with the latest changes. "How's our AI system coming along?" he asked, settling into his command chair, now a marvel of engineering itself, capable of keeping him safe even if the ship took heavy damage. Thompson pulled up a holographic display. A gentle blue light pulsed in time with her words. "Meet AI, Adaptive Response Intelligence Assistant. She's not just a computer. She's a true AI that can learn and adapt. She's already learned to manage all ship systems more efficiently than we ever could manually." "Hello, Captain Miller." AI's voice was calm and clear. "All systems are operating at peak efficiency. The new quantum computing cores have expanded my processing capability by 300% since last week." Miller nodded approvingly. The decision to integrate Earth's experimental AI technology had been controversial, but the results were undeniable. AI had taken their improvements and found ways to make them work even better together. "Show me the shield system," he requested. The holographic display shifted, showing layers of protective fields surrounding the ship. What had started as a simple defense grid had evolved into something revolutionary. The shields now adapted to any threat, using the enemy's own energy to grow stronger. "The latest tests are remarkable," Thompson said, highlighting specific data points. "When we hit the shields with energy weapons, they don't just block the attack. They absorb the energy and feed it back into our power system. The harder someone hits us, the stronger we become." Wilson stepped forward, adding his own data to the display. "And that's not all. Those simple hull patterns, we've modified them to create a metamaterial surface. We can adjust the ship's radar signature at will. We can look like a small shuttle, a massive warship, or nothing at all." Outside the ship, a maintenance team was installing the final pieces of the new sensor array. The Phoenix could now see further and more clearly than any human vessel before it. But unlike the specialized systems used by the Galactic Council, These sensors could be easily upgraded or replaced as better technology became available. "Time for a full systems test," Thompson announced. The engineering team took their positions, each monitoring different aspects of the ship's performance. Miller watched as screens filled with data, showing the incredible transformation they had achieved. Aria's voice provided updates as each system came online. Primary power grid at full capacity. Secondary and tertiary systems synchronized. Quantum cores operating at optimal levels. Shield grid energized. Adaptive defense systems ready. All weapons in standby mode. Environmental systems at 100%. The ship hummed with power, but it wasn't the unstable vibration they had felt 6 months ago. Now it was a smooth, confident pulse, like a heartbeat. Every system worked in perfect harmony, each improvement building on the others to create something greater than the sum of its parts. "Take us out," Miller ordered. "Let's see what she can really do." The Phoenix lifted smoothly from its dock, its new engines barely making a sound. As they reached orbit, Thompson began running through their test protocol. But this was no simple shakedown cruise. They were going to push the ship to its absolute limits. "Engaging maximum thrust," Thompson announced. The ship surged forward, accelerating faster than anything in Earth's fleet. The stars blurred around them, but inside the ship, no one felt more than a gentle push back in their seats. Wilson monitored the tactical systems as they ran combat drills. Holographic targets appeared and vanished as the ship's weapons tracked and eliminated them with perfect precision. The shield grid sparkled as it deflected simulated attacks, each impact making it stronger. "Energy levels are actually increasing," Thompson reported with satisfaction. "The more we use the systems, the more efficiently they work together. Aria is optimizing everything in real time." They pushed the ship harder, testing every system and capability they had added. The Phoenix responded perfectly, its hybrid systems working together in ways that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago. It was no longer just a ship. It was humanity's greatest achievement. As they completed their final test run, Miller stood at the center of the control room, looking at his crew with pride. "The Council thought they were giving us an obsolete relic," he said. "Instead, they gave us the foundation for something they never imagined possible." Thompson nodded, still monitoring the test data. "Every primitive feature they mocked us for has become an advantage. Their specialized systems can't adapt or improve without completely rebuilding them. Ours." She gestured at the screens showing the ship's capabilities. "We can upgrade any part of this ship in hours. We'll never fall behind because we can always move forward." The Phoenix cruised back to Earth, its systems running perfectly. From the outside, it still looked much like the gift they had received, perhaps a bit shinier, a bit more purposeful in its stance. But inside, it had become something new, something that represented the very best of human ingenuity and determination. "We should invite the Council for a demonstration," Wilson suggested with a slight smile. "Show them what humans can do with a useless vessel." Miller shook his head, though he was smiling too. "Not yet. Let them think we're still struggling with their gift. The time will come to show them what we've achieved. But for now..." He looked out at the stars, thinking of the future. "For now, let's focus on making the Phoenix even better." The ship glided into its dock, its transformed systems powering down to standby mode. But unlike 6 months ago, it wasn't going to sleep. It was merely waiting, ready to prove that humanity could turn any challenge into an opportunity, any setback into a triumph. The real test would come soon enough, and the Phoenix would be ready. The emergency signal blared through Earth's communication channels, its alien frequency catching everyone by surprise. Miller was in the middle of a routine system check when Aria's calm voice interrupted his work. "Captain, I'm detecting a distress call from the Galactic Council colony on Delta 9. They are under attack by a significant pirate fleet. Current count shows 37 hostile vessels." Miller straightened in his chair. "How far are we from their position?" "We are the closest vessel capable of responding. At maximum speed, We can reach them in 17 minutes. Thompson and Wilson rushed onto the bridge, having received the same alert. Their faces showed a mix of concern and determination. This would be the Phoenix's first real test, and against overwhelming odds. "The Council's going to love this," Wilson said, taking his station at tactical. "The humans coming to save them in their obsolete gift." Miller opened a channel to Earth Command, quickly receiving authorization to respond. The Council colony's fate was more important than keeping their ship's improvements secret. "All hands to battle stations. Thompson, give me everything the engines have got. Wilson, power up all defensive systems, but keep them hidden. Let's show them what this ship can really do." The Phoenix leaped forward, its hybrid engines pushing it to speeds that would have torn apart a lesser vessel. Inside, the crew felt nothing thanks to their advanced inertial dampeners. The stars stretched into lines of light as they raced to answer the distress call. Through the ship's enhanced sensors, they could already see the battle. Pirate ships swarmed around the colony like angry wasps, their weapons tearing through the orbital defenses. 2 Council ships lay crippled nearby, their golden hulls scared and dark. "This is Captain James Miller of the Earth vessel Phoenix responding to your distress call," Miller announced on all frequencies. "We are here to help." The response was immediate and dismissive. "Earth vessel, withdraw immediately," a Council commander ordered. "Your outdated ship will be destroyed. This is not a battle for primitive vessels." Miller ignored the warning. AI, battle analysis. The AI's response was immediate. Pirate vessels are using mainly energy weapons and standard missiles. Their shields are basic but numerous. They rely on overwhelming force rather than tactical superiority. I have identified 19 different weapon configurations and have adjusted our shield harmonics accordingly. Wilson, deploy the shield grid but keep it powered down. Thompson, ready the power absorption systems. Let's show them what primitive looks like. The Phoenix dove into the battle, still appearing as the same old vessel the Council had given them. The pirates, seeing what looked like an easy target, turned their attention to the human ship. "Multiple weapons locked on us," Wilson reported calmly. "Impact in 3, 2, 1. Energy beams and missiles streaked toward the Phoenix from all directions. At the last possible moment, Wilson activated their defense systems. The shield grid flared to life, not just blocking the attacks but absorbing them. Each hit made their shields stronger, feeding power back into their systems. Shield strength increasing, Thompson announced with satisfaction. Power levels are now at 120% and rising. Their attacks are making us stronger. The Council commanders watched in stunned silence as the supposedly obsolete vessel shrugged off attacks that had crippled their own ships. But the Phoenix wasn't done showing off. "Time to return the favor," Miller ordered. "Wilson, show them our little surprises." The ship's decorative hull patterns suddenly came alive. Thousands of micro-launchers deployed, each targeting a different pirate vessel. The Phoenix erupted in a dazzling display of defensive and offensive power that left both pirates and Council forces speechless. SCI-FI coordinated their attack perfectly, predicting enemy movements and adjusting their weapons in real time. Pirate ships found their shields failing as specialized energy pulses disrupted their systems. Others discovered their weapons being turned against them by the Phoenix's adaptive defense grid. "Enemy fleet is breaking formation," Wilson reported with a grin. "They've never seen anything like this. They don't know how to counter our systems." Miller watched as the pirate fleet tried to regroup. Their traditional tactics were useless against the Phoenix's constantly adapting defenses. Each attack they launched only made the human ship stronger, its hybrid systems working together in ways they couldn't understand. "Multiple ships are powering up their jump drives," SCI-FI reported. "They are attempting to escape." "Not today," Miller said firmly. "Thompson, activate the gravity net. Wilson, target their engines. Let's make sure these pirates don't trouble anyone else." The Phoenix's most innovative system deployed, a web of focused gravity fields that trapped the pirate ships in place. Their engines strained against the invisible force, but they couldn't break free. One by one, Wilson's precisely targeted shots disabled their power systems. In less than 30 minutes, the battle was over. The pirate fleet that had overwhelmed the Council's defenses lay dead in space, defeated by a single primitive vessel. The Phoenix hung among them, its systems humming contentedly, ready for more if needed. "Status report," Miller called out. "Shields at 200% capacity thanks to all that absorbed energy," Thompson reported. "All systems functioning perfectly. ARRA has already analyzed their weapon systems and updated our defensive algorithms. We're actually stronger now than when the battle started." The Council commander's voice came over the comm system again, but this time the dismissive tone was gone. "Earth vessel. How? What did you do to that ship?" Miller smiled. "We improved it. Turns out humans are pretty good at making things better. Would you like assistance with your damaged vessels? Our engineering teams are quite experienced with repairs." The silence that followed was almost comical. Finally, the commander responded, "We would appreciate any assistance you can provide." As repair teams prepared to help the damaged Council ships, Miller looked at his crew with pride. They had done more than win a battle. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to adapt and improve. "Send word to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them the Phoenix has completed its first combat trial. All systems performed beyond expectations." He paused, looking at the defeated pirate fleet. "And maybe mention that we're going to need a bigger dock. I have a feeling we're going to be making a lot more improvements after analyzing all this combat data." The Phoenix moved gracefully among the damaged ships, its sensors already cataloging new information, its systems adapting and improving. What the Council had intended as an insult had become humanity's greatest triumph. And this was just the beginning. News of the Phoenix's victory spread through the galaxy like a wildfire. The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with excited discussions as representatives from various species debated what this meant for their carefully maintained hierarchy. Humans, it seemed, had done the impossible. They had turned a technological insult into a triumph that couldn't be ignored. 3 weeks after the battle, the Phoenix approached the Council's central station. This time, there were no smirks or dismissive glances from the alien diplomats. Every sensor and scanner on the station was focused on the vessel, trying to understand how humans had achieved such a transformation. Miller stood proud on his bridge, his crew at their stations. Thompson and Wilson flanked him as they prepared to dock. The ship looked much the same as when it had first been gifted to humanity, but now it moved with undeniable purpose and power. "They've assigned us their primary docking bay," Araya announced. "Interesting. According to their protocols, that berth is reserved for their most advanced vessels." Thompson smiled at her screens. "Well, we certainly qualify for that now. Our power readings alone are probably giving their sensors fits." The Phoenix settled into the dock with perfect precision. As they prepared to meet the Council, Wilson's tactical display lit up. "Captain, you might want to see this." Every military vessel in the system just went to full alert. "They're scared of us." "Not scared," Miller corrected. "Cautious. They've just discovered that humans are far more capable than they assumed. Let them watch. They might learn something." The Council chamber was packed when they entered. Species from across the galaxy had gathered to witness this historic moment. The same silver-skinned diplomat who had presented the gift stood at the central podium, looking far less confident than before. "Humans," the diplomat began, "you have surprised us. Our analysis of your battle with the pirate fleet shows capabilities we did not think possible with such basic technology." "Basic?" Thompson stepped forward, unable to contain herself. "What you saw as basic was actually flexible, adaptable. Your specialized systems are impressive, but they can't grow or change. Ours can evolve." She activated a holographic display, showing the Phoenix's systems. "Every attack makes us stronger. Every battle teaches us something new. We took your gift and made it better not because we're more advanced, but because we think differently." The chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives from various worlds began shouting questions, demanding to know how humans had achieved such results. But it was an old, quiet voice from the back of the chamber that caught everyone's attention. "They did exactly what we hoped they would." The crowd parted to reveal an ancient alien, their skin wrinkled and pale. Miller recognized the species. They were nearly extinct now, but they had once been great engineers. "I was part of the team that designed that vessel," the Ancient One said, moving forward slowly. "We created it thousands of years ago, but not as the simple ship everyone assumed it to be. We designed it as a test." The chamber fell silent as the Ancient One continued. "We built it with potential hidden capabilities that would only become apparent to a species that thought creatively, that saw possibilities where others saw limitations. We launched many such ships into the galaxy, waiting for someone to understand their true nature." Thompson's eyes widened as understanding dawned. The adaptive core, the modular systems, the hull patterns, they weren't mistakes or outdated technology. They were seeds, the Ancient One finished. Seeds waiting for the right species to help them grow. Many received our ships over the millennia. All saw them as primitive, useless. But you humans, the Ancient One's eyes gleamed. You saw what we had hidden. You understood. The council chamber buzzed with this revelation. The silver-skinned diplomat looked shocked. "You mean to tell us that this was all a test? That the humans succeeded where we all failed?" "Not failed," Miller interjected. "You just saw things differently. Humans have always had to adapt, to improve, to find new ways to solve problems. When you gave us that ship, you didn't give us limitations. You gave us opportunities." Wilson stepped forward, adding his own thoughts. "Every system we added, every improvement we made, worked better than it should have. Now we know why. The ship was designed to enhance whatever was added to it, but only if those additions were made with understanding and creativity." The Ancient One nodded. "And now, as was always intended, we offer humanity our people's legacy. In the ship's database, accessible only to those who proved worthy, are the technical archives of our civilization. All our knowledge, our achievements, our discoveries, they are yours now." Thompson's tablet chimed. Araya's voice announced, "New data streams detected. Beginning integration of archived technical data." "Captain, this is incredible. The theoretical foundations alone are centuries beyond current galactic science." The council representatives whispered among themselves. Humanity hadn't just proven themselves capable. They had unlocked knowledge that had been hidden in plain sight for thousands of years. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in ways no one had expected. The silver-skinned diplomat cleared their throat. "In light of these developments, the Council proposes an immediate revision of Earth's status. We would be honored to learn from humanity's unique perspective." Miller smiled but shook his head. "What we prefer is genuine cooperation. We don't want to dominate or control. We want to share what we've learned, work together, help everyone advance. That's another human trait. We believe that everyone can improve, everyone can grow stronger." The Ancient One's eyes crinkled with pleasure. "And that, more than anything else, proves you were the right choice. Our technology was never meant to create a new ruling species. It was meant to find one that would help lift all others up with them." As the council session continued, Miller looked at his crew with pride. They had done more than prove humanity's worth. They had shown that the greatest strength wasn't in having the most advanced technology, but in having the vision to see possibilities where others saw limitations. "So," Wilson said quietly, "what do we do with all this new knowledge?" Thompson was already scrolling through the technical archives, her eyes bright with excitement. "We do what humans always do. We learn, we improve, and we share." And then she looked up at the gathered representatives of the galaxy's species. "Then we help everyone else do the same." The Phoenix hummed in its dock, no longer just a transformed gift, but a symbol of humanity's unique place in the galaxy. Its systems hummed quietly, already incorporating the ancient knowledge it had helped unlock. But more importantly, it stood as proof that the greatest technology wasn't the most advanced or the most specialized. It was the kind that could grow, adapt, and improve. And that was something humans understood better than anyone. The morning sun reflected off the massive hull of the U.S. Constellation, making the old aircraft carrier shine like a beacon in the new Seattle harbor. Thomas Reed stood at his usual spot on the deck, his weathered hands resting on the rails as he watched the first visitors of the day approach the gangway. At 78, he had spent more years as the ship's curator than he had spent alive during its active service. Another beautiful day at the office, he muttered to himself, smiling as he heard the excited chatter of schoolchildren floating up from below. These days, most kids came to see the newer exhibitions, the holographic space battles, and the virtual reality combat simulators. But Thomas knew the real treasure was the ship itself. The Constellation wasn't just any museum piece. Unlike other retired vessels that had been gutted and turned into hollow shells, this Nimitz-class carrier had been maintained in working order. It was part of the Heritage Preservation Act of 2389, which required at least one ship of each class to be kept in operational condition. Most people thought it was a waste of money, but Thomas knew better. He walked through his morning routine, checking each station and display. His footsteps echoed through the massive hangar deck where old F-35 fighters stood in perfect rows, their panels gleaming under the bright lights. Each plane was also maintained in working order, another requirement that many had questioned over the years. The first tour group of the day gathered around Mary, one of the younger guides. "And here we have the last operational Nimitz-class carrier," she explained to the visitors. "Though, of course, it hasn't moved from this spot in over 50 years. Thomas smiled to himself. That wasn't entirely true. Every month, when the museum was closed for maintenance, they ran all systems at low power. The massive engines still worked. The nuclear reactor, though running on minimal output, was still active. Even the aircraft elevators and catapults were tested regularly. It was his little secret, shared only with a handful of certified maintenance crews. The morning passed quietly until Thomas noticed something odd. The usual stream of messages on his neural implant had stopped. He walked to his office, a small room filled with both physical books and holographic displays. The main screen was flashing red. The emergency broadcast system had been activated. The message was brief but terrifying. ALERT. Unknown hostile forces detected in the Proxima Centauri colony. Fleet engagement in progress. Civilian casualties reported. This is not a drill. Thomas felt his heart race as he pulled up more information. The data streaming in painted a grim picture. Humanity's outer colonies were under attack by an alien force that had appeared without warning. The Earth Defense Fleet had already mobilized, but early reports weren't good. He looked out his window at the crowds of visitors still wandering the ship, blissfully unaware of what was happening light years away. Then his neural implant buzzed with a private message, one he had hoped never to receive. Protocol Whiskey Hotel is now active. Acknowledge. Thomas's hands shook as he sent his confirmation. Years ago, when he had taken this job, he had been briefed about this protocol. It seemed absurd then, the idea that a museum ship might ever be needed for actual combat. But the politicians and military planners had insisted on maintaining this backup plan, hidden in plain sight. He began sending coded messages to specific individuals around the city. Former naval officers, retired engineers, and military historians, all people who had been carefully chosen and briefed about this possibility. Then he started the subtle process of evacuating the museum. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice echoed through the ship's still-functioning announcement system. "Due to an unexpected maintenance issue, we will be closing early today. Please proceed to the exit in an orderly fashion. All ticket holders will receive a full refund and a free pass for their next visit." As the confused visitors made their way out, Thomas received the first responses to his messages. They were coming. The old crew, the ones who had trained in secret for years, were on their way. He made his way to the bridge, each step feeling heavier than the last. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the deck. In the distance, he could see the sleek shapes of modern warships moving out to sea, the active-duty fleet mobilizing for war. Thomas touched the old captain's chair, his mind racing through everything that needed to be done. The weapons systems would need to be brought online. The aircraft would need to be checked and armed. The reactor would need to be brought up to full power for the first time in decades. His neural implant buzzed again with another emergency alert. The news was worse than he had feared. The alien force had broken through the outer defenses. The Earth Defense Fleet was taking heavy losses. Their energy weapons and advanced shields were failing against whatever technology the aliens were using. A soft chime announced the arrival of the first response team. Through the bridge windows, Thomas could see people arriving in ones and twos, trying not to draw attention. Many were older, like him, but they moved with purpose. They knew what needed to be done. "Welcome aboard," he said to the first group as they reached the bridge. "I wish it were under better circumstances." Among them was Robert Miller, a former naval captain who now taught history at the local university. "Never thought we'd actually have to do this," Miller said, looking around the bridge with professional interest. "How long until we're ready?" Thomas pulled up the status displays, their ancient screens coming to life. "The reactor can be at full power in 6 hours. Weapons systems will take longer. We'll need to break out the ammunition from the sealed storage. The real challenge will be the aircraft. We have 12 F-35s in operational condition, but they'll need to be armed and checked thoroughly." The others were already moving to their stations, muscle memory taking over despite the years away. They had trained for this, even if they had never truly believed it would happen. "What about crews?" Miller asked. "We're going to need more people." Thomas nodded toward the windows, where more people were arriving. "I've activated the full reserve list. But you're right, we'll need to train new people quickly, especially pilots." A loud alarm cut through the air, making everyone freeze. Thomas pulled up the alert on the main screen. The news struck him like a physical blow. The Earth Defense Fleet had suffered a major defeat. Most of their ships were destroyed or disabled. The alien force would reach Earth within days. "Well," Thomas said, looking at the determined faces around him, "I guess we'd better get to work. Captain Miller, I believe you're the ranking officer present. The ship is yours." Miller straightened, years dropping away as he assumed command. "Right, let's show these aliens what an old Earth warship can do. Begin power-up procedures. And someone find us some pilots, preferably ones who still remember how to fly without computer assistance." As the bridge came alive with activity, Thomas took one last look at the peaceful harbor. Soon, the holographic camouflage would be deactivated, revealing the fully armed and operational carrier beneath. Soon, the aliens would learn that humanity had more than one way to fight. The old curator smiled. Maybe those yearly maintenance budgets hadn't been such a waste after all. Captain Robert Miller stood in the carrier's bustling hangar deck, watching his crews work through the night to prepare the F-35s for combat. The sound of tools hitting metal echoed off the walls, mixing with urgent voices and the hum of power systems coming online. Just 24 hours ago, he had been preparing lecture notes about the Third World War. Now he was preparing for humanity's next great battle. "Sir, we found more pilots," called out James Wilson, a former flight instructor who had arrived an hour ago. He led a group of 5 people toward Miller. "They all have experience with older aircraft. 2 of them even flew these models in simulators." Miller nodded, studying the group. They weren't what he would have chosen in better times. 2 cargo pilots, a civilian flight instructor, and 2 air show performers. But they understood the basics of flight without relying on AI assistance, and that's what mattered now. "Welcome aboard," Miller said. "I know this isn't what any of you expected to be doing today, but we're short on options. The aliens have knocked out most of our modern defenses. Their shields seem to stop energy weapons, but we're betting they've never faced good old-fashioned bullets and missiles. The pilots exchanged glances, but none of them backed away. One of them, an older woman with gray hair tied back in a tight bun, stepped forward. Name's Lisa Thompson. Been flying restored warbirds for 15 years. These jets might be newer than what I'm used to, but the principles are the same. Point me at the enemy, and I'll give them hell. Above them, the massive hangar doors began to open, revealing the night sky. The holographic camouflage that usually hid the ship's military features had been deactivated, showing the carrier's true nature. Emergency lights cast everything in a red glow, making the scene feel even more surreal. Thomas Reed appeared from behind a fighter, his face tired but determined. "Captain, we've got the ammunition stores opened. Crews are loading the planes now. Basic missiles and rounds. Nothing fancy, but they'll do the job." Miller was about to respond when every neural implant in the hangar buzzed simultaneously. The news made his blood run cold. The alien fleet had broken through the last line of defense at Mars. They would reach Earth within 12 hours. "Time to speed things up," Miller announced. "Thompson, get your people to the simulators. You've got 6 hours to learn these birds. The rest of you, keep working. I want every plane ready for launch when the time comes." He turned to Thomas. "What about the ship's defenses?" "Coming online now," Thomas replied. "The SCI-FI still works perfectly. Tested it last month. Missile systems are good too. We've even got some old electronic warfare gear that might come in handy. The aliens won't expect signals from this era." Miller's neural implant buzzed again. This time, it was a message from the emergency command center that had been set up inland. Other museum ships worldwide were being activated. The U.S. Missouri and Pearl Harbor, the Charles de Gaulle and Marcel, even old submarines were being brought back to life. "Sir," a voice called from across the hangar, "you need to see this." Miller and Thomas hurried over to where a group had gathered around a video feed. It showed the space battle above Mars. The alien ships were sleek and powerful, their energy weapons cutting through space. But something caught Miller's eye. "Play that back," he ordered. "Slow it down." The footage replayed, showing an alien ship destroying an Earth vessel. But just before the Earth ship exploded, a conventional missile had slipped through. The alien shields had flickered oddly around the projectile. "They're shields," Miller said slowly. "They're tuned for energy weapons. They might not stop physical projectiles as effectively." He turned to Thomas. "Did you see that?" The old curator was already nodding. "That's why they kept us operational. The military planners suspected we might face enemies with defenses like these. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The pilots ran simulation after simulation, learning to handle the jets without modern AI assistance. Maintenance crews worked frantically to prepare every weapon system. More volunteers arrived. Former military, museum staff, even civilians with useful skills. Miller walked the ship with Thomas, checking each station. The massive carrier was coming alive around them. The nuclear reactor was now at full power, steam building in the catapults. Radar systems from 3 different eras were online, giving them a mix of capabilities that might confuse alien sensors. "Look at this," Thomas said, leading Miller to a storage room. Inside were crates of old radio equipment. No quantum communication, no FTL signals, just basic radio waves. "Bet the aliens won't be monitoring these frequencies." Miller smiled for the first time in hours. "Bring it all online. We'll coordinate with the other museum ships. They won't expect a bunch of antiques to have any fight left in them." They reached the bridge just as dawn was breaking. The view outside was terrifying. Bright flashes lit up the sky as the alien fleet engaged Earth's remaining defenses. Modern warships were falling quickly, their advanced weapons useless against the enemy's shields. "Captain," called out the radar operator, "multiple bogies entering atmosphere. They're heading for major cities." Miller took a deep breath and sat in the captain's chair. "Start launch preparations. Get those fighters ready. And someone wake up the gun crews. Let's see if these aliens can handle a taste of 20th century firepower." Thomas watched as the bridge crew worked with growing confidence. The old ship's systems might have been outdated, but they were robust and reliable. No complex AI to hack, no quantum fields to disrupt, just solid engineering and human skill. "Sir," called out the communication officer, "we're picking up signals from other museum ships. They're all reporting ready. The Missouri is already engaging alien craft in Hawaii." "Good," Miller said. "Tell all hands to prepare for combat. We're about to remind everyone why they kept these old ships around." He looked at Thomas. "Thank you for keeping her ready all these years." Thomas nodded, his eyes bright. "Just doing my job, Captain. Though I never thought we'd actually need her like this." The first alien ship appeared on their radar, heading straight for New Seattle. It was time. Miller pressed the ship-wide communication button, his voice echoing through every compartment of the massive carrier. "All hands, this is the captain speaking. In a few minutes, we're going to show these aliens something they've never seen before. How Earth fought wars before we had fancy energy weapons and quantum shields. Every system on this ship was built to be tough, reliable, and deadly. The aliens think they've won because they beat our modern fleet. They don't know about us yet. Let's introduce ourselves." He nodded to the flight control officer. "Launch the first wave. Let's make history proud." The deck of the U.S. Constellation shook as the first F-35 thundered down the catapult. Lisa Thompson's fighter shot forward, climbing rapidly into the dawn sky. 3 more jets followed quickly behind her, their engines roaring in a way that hadn't been heard over New Seattle for decades. Thomas Reed watched from the bridge, his heart pounding as the old carrier launched its first combat mission in over 50 years. Behind him, Captain Miller was coordinating with the other museum ships through the ancient radio systems. "Missouri reports success in Hawaii," the radio operator called out. "Their old shells went right through the alien shields. They've already taken down 2 enemy ships." Miller nodded, but his attention was on the radar screen. A large alien vessel was descending through the clouds, heading straight for the city. Its sleek shape reminded him of a massive manta ray, glowing with strange energies. "All fighters, this is Constellation." Miller spoke into the radio. "Enemy vessel at 12 o'clock high. Remember your training. No fancy moves. Basic attack patterns, just like in the simulations." Lisa's voice crackled back over the radio. "Roger that, Constellation. Forming up now. These aliens are in for a surprise." The alien ship suddenly stopped, hovering over the water. It seemed to notice the carrier for the first time, probably confused by the primitive vessel that dared to challenge it. Energy began building along its hull, preparing to fire. "Now," Miller ordered. The F-35s struck from 4 different directions. Their missiles, designed long before energy shields existed, slammed into the alien vessel. The enemy's shields flickered wildly, trying to adapt to the unfamiliar weapons. More missiles followed, and then the fighters swept in with their guns. "Direct hits," Lisa shouted over the radio. "Their shields can't handle kinetic weapons." The alien ship turned, trying to target the fast-moving fighters. Its energy weapons lit up the sky, but the F-35 pilots used the low clouds for cover, attacking and disappearing like wasps harassing a larger animal. Thomas gripped the bridge railing as the alien vessel turned toward the Constellation. "Here they come," he muttered. "All hands brace for combat," Miller announced. "Gun crews, stand by." The alien ship fired, sending a beam of intense energy toward the carrier. But Thomas had been preparing for this moment for years. Hidden panels along the ship's hull slid open, revealing rows of old but well-maintained close-in weapon systems. "CIWS engaging," the weapons officer reported. The automated guns roared to life, filling the air with thousands of rounds per minute. The simple tungsten bullets did what modern energy weapons couldn't, They penetrated the alien shields and tore into the ship's hull. The enemy vessel shuddered, its attack beam going wide. More F-35s launched from the carrier's deck, joining the battle. The alien ship tried to retreat higher into the atmosphere, but its hull was already heavily damaged. "They're running," someone shouted. "Not so fast," Miller said quietly. "Fire main missiles." The carrier's vertical launch systems, hidden under what appeared to be museum displays, opened up. Dozens of missiles streaked toward the alien vessel. Its shields, already weakened by the SCI-FI fire, couldn't stop the barrage. The ship exploded in a spectacular flash, raining debris into the bay. But there was no time to celebrate. The radar operator's voice was tense. Multiple contacts incoming. At least 5 more alien ships. Miller turned to Thomas. "Time to show them everything this old girl can do." Sound general quarters. The carrier's ancient battle alarm echoed across the water. More fighters launched while the gun crews reloaded. The radio crackled with reports from other museum ships joining the fight. The U.S. Missouri was advancing across the Pacific. The Charles de Gaulle was engaging enemies over Europe. Even old submarines were making their presence known, their conventional torpedoes proving just as effective as the guns and missiles. Thomas made his way below decks, checking on critical systems. The crew, a mix of veterans and hastily trained volunteers, worked with growing confidence. They had seen that the aliens could be hurt, could be beaten. He reached the main ammunition storage just as the ship shook from a direct hit. The lights flickered, then stabilized. "Damage report," he called out. "Hull plating holding," came the response. "These old ships were built tough, sir. They didn't rely on shields back then." Another hit rocked the carrier, stronger this time. Thomas stumbled against the wall, then heard something that made his blood run cold. The sound of the reactor warning alarms. He ran to engineering, finding controlled chaos. The reactor crews were working frantically to prevent a meltdown. A direct hit had damaged some of the cooling systems. "We need to shut it down," one engineer shouted. "No," Thomas said firmly. "We can reroute through the backup systems. I've maintained them all these years for exactly this reason." He moved to a panel that looked like a museum piece but was actually fully functional. His fingers flew over the controls, activating backup circuits that hadn't been used in decades. The reactor warnings slowly faded. Above them, the battle continued to rage. The F-35s had learned to work together, using their old weapons in ways the aliens never expected. Lissa led her squadron in attack after attack, their very primitiveness becoming an advantage. "Their sensors can't lock onto us properly," she reported. "They're too used to modern stealth systems. These old jets must look like ghosts to them." Miller coordinated the defense from the bridge, using the simple radio networks to link with other museum ships. The aliens' advanced communication jamming had no effect on these ancient frequencies. More enemy ships appeared, but now they approached more cautiously. They had learned respect for these primitive vessels that their scans had dismissed as harmless relics. Thomas made it back to the bridge just as a massive alien ship, larger than the others, descended from the clouds. It bristled with weapons, its hull glowing with power. "Must be their commander," Miller said, "coming to finish us personally." "Sir," the radar operator called out, getting strange readings. "They're powering up something big." The alien flagship's hull split open, revealing what looked like a massive energy cannon. Power built up visibly, creating distortions in the air. "All hands, brace for impact," Miller ordered. This might be it. But Thomas was smiling. "No," he said, "this is what we've been waiting for." He pulled out an old data chip, something he'd kept secret for years. "Captain, install this in the main fire control computer." Miller took the chip, understanding dawning in his eyes. "You knew this might happen." "The military planners weren't completely in the dark," Thomas explained. "They had theories about advanced aliens, about energy shields and weapons. That's why they kept these ships ready. And that's why they gave me this." The chip contained firing solutions specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in energy-based weapons and shields. The military had prepared for this possibility decades ago, hiding their preparations in plain sight in museum ships around the world. As the alien flagship prepared to fire its superweapon, the Constellation and its aircraft moved into position. They weren't just fighting with old weapons anymore. They were fighting with decades of hidden preparation and planning. The real battle for Earth was about to begin. The alien flagship's weapon continued charging, creating strange ripples in the air around it. On the Constellation's bridge, Captain Miller inserted Thomas's data chip into the fire control computer. Ancient screens flickered to life, displaying targeting information that had been hidden away for decades. Multiple firing solutions available, the weapons officer reported, surprise in his voice as he read the new data. Sir, these targeting patterns, they're designed to create cascading shield failures. Miller nodded grimly. Send the data to all fighters. Lisa, get your squadron into position Alpha 7. He turned to Thomas. How long have you known about this? 20 years, Thomas replied, watching the alien ship through the bridge windows. They told me when I took this job. Said someday we might face enemies who relied too heavily on energy weapons and shields. That's why we kept everything working, kept it all ready. The massive alien vessel now hung directly above them, its weapon looking like a small sun about to burst. Energy readings were off the charts, threatening to overload their sensors. All stations report ready, the communications officer called out. Other museum ships standing by. The Missouri and 3 others are in position. Miller took a deep breath. Execute pattern break 7. Lisa's squadron struck first, their F-35s appearing from behind cloud cover. Instead of firing directly at the alien ship, they launched their missiles in a complex pattern, creating a web of approaching weapons. The alien flagship's shields flared as it tried to track multiple threats. Its energy weapon dimmed slightly as power was diverted to defenses. That was the moment they had been waiting for. Main batteries, fire, Miller ordered. The Constellation's missiles launched in precise sequences, their paths calculated by decades-old computers using the secret targeting data. They weren't just attacking the alien ship, they were attacking its shield generation points in a specific order. Missouri reports ready, the radio operator called out. Tell them to fire on my mark, Miller said, watching the alien ship closely. The massive vessel's shields were flickering wildly now, trying to adapt to the unfamiliar attack pattern. Now, from miles away, the U.S. Missouri's main guns fired. The heavy shells, guided by the same targeting data, struck the alien ship's weakened shields at precisely calculated points. More museum ships opened fire, each shot perfectly timed. The alien flagship's shields collapsed section by section, unable to handle the carefully orchestrated assault. Its energy weapon powered down as the ship diverted all power to trying to restore its defenses. All fighters, commence attack run, Miller ordered. Hit them with everything we've got. Lisa led her squadron through the gaps in the alien defenses. Their guns and missiles struck vital points on the massive ship's hull, causing explosions and venting atmosphere into space. But the alien vessel wasn't finished. It launched its own fighters, sleek, dart-like craft that moved with incredible speed. The battle dissolved into a chaotic dogfight above the city. Enemy fighters approaching, bearing 270, the radar operator warned. SCI-FI engaging, the weapons officer responded. The carrier's automatic guns filled the sky with streams of bullets, creating a barrier of steel that the alien fighters couldn't penetrate without being shredded. Lisa's voice crackled over the radio. These alien pilots don't know how to dogfight. They rely too much on their technology. When that fails, they don't know what to do. She proved her point by leading an alien fighter into a classic rolling scissors maneuver, something that hadn't been used in actual combat for decades. The alien pilot, unable to depend on its advanced targeting systems, couldn't match the basic flying skill. Lisa's guns tore the enemy fighter apart. Thomas worked his way through the carrier, checking on damage and helping where he could. The old ship had taken hits, but her thick armor and redundant systems were holding. He reached the engine room just as another blast rocked the ship. "Port engine is struggling," the chief engineer reported. "These hits are adding up." Thomas moved to the control panel. "Switch to backup cooling system 3. It'll buy us more time." He had insisted on maintaining all the backup systems, even when others said it was a waste of resources. Now that dedication was paying off. Above them, the battle reached its peak. The alien flagship, its shields finally failing completely, tried to retreat higher into the atmosphere. But the museum ships had it surrounded, their old weapons proving devastatingly effective against its exposed hull. "Enemy vessel powering up its main drive," the sensor operator reported. "They're trying to escape." "Not today," Miller said firmly. "All ships, concentrate fire on their engine section. Lisa, take your squadron in close. Target their power distribution nodes." The F-35s dove through the chaos of battle, missiles streaking toward precise points on the alien ship's hull. The flagship's massive engines stuttered and died, leaving it hanging helplessly in the sky. That was when they all heard it, a transmission cutting through all frequencies. The alien ship was broadcasting in Earth languages. The transmission crackled. "We yield. Your primitive weapons, we cannot defend." "How is this possible?" Miller smiled grimly. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Prepare to be boarded." The alien flagship's surrender triggered a chain reaction. Other alien vessels, seeing their most powerful ship defeated by what they had dismissed as museum pieces, began retreating from Earth's atmosphere. Thomas made his way back to the bridge as cleanup operations began. The carrier's deck was already being cleared to receive the alien prisoners. He found Miller studying damage reports. "The old girl held together," Miller said, looking up. "Though we'll need some serious repair work." Thomas nodded, running his hand along a nearby console. "She did her job. They all did. Every museum ship that fought today proved why we kept them ready all these years." Reports were coming in from around the world. The Missouri had sunk 3 alien ships. The Charles de Gaulle's fighters had protected all of southern Europe. Even old submarines had claimed victories, their conventional torpedoes proving just as effective as the guns and missiles. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're getting messages from the retreat alien ships. They're requesting permission to recover their damaged vessels, and they want to open diplomatic channels." Miller raised an eyebrow. "Seems they've learned some respect for Earth's primitive technology." Thomas watched as Lisa's squadron made their final landing, the F-35s touching down one by one on the carrier's deck. The old planes had proven themselves in combat once again, their simple reliability winning out over advanced alien technology. But he knew this wasn't over. The alien fleet might have retreated, but they would be back. They would adapt, try to find ways to counter Earth's old weapons. The next battle would be even harder. That was fine. Earth would be ready. The museum ships had reminded everyone that sometimes the best defense wasn't the newest technology, but the tried and true methods that had stood the test of time. And there were more museums, more old ships and weapons, ready to be awakened if needed. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the carrier's battle-scarred deck. Tomorrow they would begin repairs, start training more crews, and prepare for whatever came next. But for now, they had won. The museum ship had become a warrior once again, proving that some things never truly retire. They just wait for the moment they're needed most. 2 weeks after the battle, the U.S. Constellation's deck buzzed with activity once again. But instead of launching fighters, crews were busy with repairs. Welders fixed battle damage while technicians checked systems that had been pushed to their limits during the fight. Captain Miller walked the deck with Thomas, both men stopping occasionally to watch the work. Above them, civilian ships were helping to clear the remains of alien vessels from the bay. The massive hulk of the alien flagship had been moved to a secure facility for study. "The aliens want another meeting," Miller said, looking at a message on his neural implant. Their diplomats seem honestly embarrassed about the whole thing. Turns out their entire military doctrine was built around energy weapons and shields. They never considered that someone might still use physical projectiles. Thomas nodded, watching a crew replace a damaged radar array. That's why the old planners kept these ships ready. They knew that someday we might face enemies who had gone too far in one technological direction. Sometimes the best countermeasure is to step backwards. They reached the carrier's bow, where Lisa was training new pilots. After the battle, thousands of young people had volunteered to learn how to fly the old jets. They wanted to master the basic skills that had proven so effective against alien technology. "How are the students doing?" Miller asked as they approached. Lisa smiled, gesturing to the trainee pilots gathered around an F-35's cockpit. "They're learning fast. Most of them grew up with AI assistance for everything. So it's a challenge. But they understand now why it's important to know the fundamentals." A shadow passed overhead, one of the alien diplomatic shuttles heading for the mainland. The aliens had been surprisingly quick to seek peace once they realized their technological advantage wasn't as complete as they had thought. "Did you see the latest report?" Thomas asked Miller. "They found my predecessor's notes in the archives." Turns out he knew about the alien threat too. Each curator of each museum ship was part of a chain, keeping these vessels ready just in case. Miller whistled softly. "How many people knew?" "Not many," Thomas replied. "Just enough to keep the ships maintained, to make sure they'd be ready when needed. The best way to keep a secret is to hide it in plain sight. Nobody looks twice at a museum." They walked to the bridge, where new equipment was being installed. The carrier would keep its old systems, but they were adding modern technology too, creating a hybrid that combined the best of both worlds. "Message from the Missouri," the communications officer called out. "They're starting their patrol of the Pacific tomorrow. The Charles de Gaulle is already watching the European coast." The museum ships have been officially reactivated, forming a new line of defense for Earth. They wouldn't replace the modern fleet, which was already being rebuilt with lessons learned from the battle, but they would stand ready, a reminder that humanity had more than one way to fight. Thomas paused at his old office, now being converted into a proper command center. On his desk sat a letter he had written years ago, never expecting it to be needed. It contained everything he knew about the ship, about the secret preparations, about the alien threat that the military planners had feared might come. "I should have told you sooner," he said to Miller, "about the preparations, about what we really were." Miller shook his head. "You did exactly what you needed to do. If everyone had known, someone might have questioned the expense, might have pushed to decommission these ships. Sometimes the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't know you have." A group of visitors caught their attention. Officials from other museums around the world come to learn how to maintain their own ships. The success of the Constellation and other museum vessels had sparked a global movement to preserve military history in working condition. "It's not just ships," Lisa said, joining them on the bridge. "They're restoring old tanks, aircraft, even basic firearms. The aliens taught us that sometimes older technology has advantages that can't be matched by newer systems." Thomas watched as a restored helicopter landed on the carrier's deck, bringing more supplies. The old and the new working together, each supporting the other. It was how humanity had always advanced, not by abandoning the past, but by building on it. "We got another message from the alien diplomats," Miller said, checking his neural implant. "They're asking about our other museum ships, wanting to know if they're all operational. I think we scared them more than we realized." "Good," Thomas replied. "Let them wonder. Let them look at every museum on Earth and ask themselves what other surprises we might have waiting." The sun was setting now, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Around the carrier, the lights of New Seattle were coming on. The city had survived, thanks to a museum ship that turned out to be much more than a simple display piece. Lisa excused herself to check on her pilots, leaving Thomas and Miller alone on the bridge. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the activity on the deck below. "What happens now?" Miller finally asked. Thomas smiled, looking at the new generation of crew members learning to operate the carrier systems. "Now we keep going. We maintain the old skills alongside the new technology. We remember that every piece of our history might be useful someday." He pulled out an old key, the one he had used to lock up the museum every night for 20 years. "I won't be needing this anymore. The Constellation isn't just a museum now. She's back on active duty, ready to defend Earth again if needed." Miller took the key, understanding its significance. "We'll make sure she stays ready, and we'll make sure everyone remembers why we kept these ships all these years." As night fell, the carrier's lights came on, illuminating her battle-scared but proud silhouette. In ports around the world, other museum ships were coming back to life, their curators revealing similar preparations, similar hidden capabilities. The aliens had come expecting to face only modern technology, only the latest weapons. Instead, they had encountered the full depth of human military knowledge, preserved and maintained in museums that were much more than they appeared to be. Thomas took one last walk around the carrier before heading home. In the darkness, with the work crews gone, he could almost imagine he was back in simpler times, just a museum curator making his evening rounds. But the fresh paint covering battle damage and the new equipment being installed told a different story. The U.S. Constellation, like all the other museum ships, had proven that some things were worth preserving, worth keeping ready, not just as memories of the past, but as guardians of the future. And if Earth ever needed them again, they would be ready. After all, that was what museums were for, not just to remember history, but to learn from it, to keep its lessons alive. And sometimes, when the moment was right, to let that history roar back to life and remind everyone why it had been preserved in the first place.